Welcome, Dolphin fans, to the latest episode of Dolphins in Depth. We are still doing our autopsy on the season. And in true autopsy fashion, I figured I would bring in a couple more experts in so that we can examine the body from a fan's perspective. Let me show you who I got here. Let me show you this crew of cast of characters. We've got Dudley Do Wrong. Everybody knows Dudley. I know the Dolphins even know Dudley. We've got Brittany from Sideline T. Yes, from Sideline T. One of my favorite podcasts. And then we've got everybody's favorite troll, TD Finstock, who wants to call himself Tony. Who is Tony?
Wow. Listen, that's my real name, Omar. And one thing that I've learned, you are a bigger troll than me. So please stop.
Sir.
It is official.
TD Finstock, I am curious. I'm going to have you start this off, okay? Because here's the thing that I want to address. The Dolphins 8-9 finished the season with a losing record, preventing themselves from getting to a winning record for the fifth time in franchise history by losing to the Jets. Now, Aaron Rodgers looks like all-world Aaron Rodgers every time he plays the Dolphins. He looks super regular every time he plays everybody else. But the Dolphins could not figure it out and lost that game. What is your real reason in your mind that the Dolphins finished with a losing record this season?
It's kind of twofold. It's really hard to ignore not having your quarterback for 6 games in the season. I think we all could agree, whether you like him or not, that if he hadn't gotten hurt this year, we would have had another victory or two. I would have had 2 more victories. At least that's what I believe. And we would have actually made it to the playoffs. And I'm not sure we would have had any success, but we would have. So missing your quarterback is a huge one, but you got to put it on Chris Greer. Management, let's just say management and how we operate in our organization. He's responsible for the situation the Miami Dolphins continue to be in.
And Dudley, how do you feel about the 8-9 record, and what's your main reason that this team fell short of expectations?
Complete failure on the season, but for me, I think it's Mike McDaniel's system on offense. Even with Tua coming out and talking about the complexity of it and how it's too much going into the snap, like he has 10 seconds and he has to get motions in and all that stuff. But not even that, the fact that like our backup quarterbacks can't even really understand it because it's more predicated to one quarterback. That's a problem. And he really needs to adapt that offense, especially because people are starting to pick up on it. As you saw, D'Amico Ryans calling out a tight end screen and then they shut it down. So to me, you go from the number 1 offense in the NFL to the 22nd offense in the NFL, even without Tua out there, is a big problem. You know, this offensive genius that McDaniel's supposed to be, he should be able to adapt and have some of these backups play better than they did.
But there was adaptation. I mean, you saw the inclusion of tight ends, you saw the screens or the check downs to the running back. That's a new element. Now, do I think that it made it better? No. But you're talking about simplifying it or altering it to the point where you're dumbing it down. The motions create a lot of the intricacies and give a lot of details. When you had to dumb it down, your offense looked horrible. So is dumbing it down the right answer?
Not dumbing it down to the point where it's a vanilla offense, but at least making it so that if you lose your starting quarterback, we don't automatically lose, 90% of the games. Because, you look at, he talks about the fact that, we didn't push the ball down the field because there was a lot of, cover 2s and cover 3s we saw, but last year they saw more cover 2s. 58% of the time they saw cover 2s and they still were pushing the ball down the field, whereas this year 52%, it was less. And for some reason he decided, I'm not going to force that, I'm going to throw screen after screen instead of trying to throw it over the middle. To me, that's the biggest failure is Mike McDaniel's adjustments, because to me it doesn't seem like he does enough, nor does he really make enough adjustments. And obviously, Tua not being there for 6 games, because even with Brian Flores, you see the record with Tua out there, they win. So, but to me, it's like a yin and yang type situation. It's a 1A, 1B with Tua health and the offense being, the way it is and the adjustments not happening.
What about you, Brittany? What's your number one reason this team fell short of expectations?
I'm basically going to echo what Doug Lee said, because I said it when Tua went out and we were performing the way we were, that if we can't win these games, if we can't even score in the end zone, find the end zone without Tua on the field, we have far greater issues on our hand than Tua not being on the field. It comes down to our offense, Mike McDaniel's lack of adjustment. We didn't address the backup quarterback. We had what we had, and unfortunately, it wasn't good enough. I still think that when we had Huntley playing, we should have had him using his legs more, because he's better runner than he is a passer. Mike's just calling plays for these backup quarterbacks as if they're Tua, and they're not Tua, and it just wasn't good enough. We could commit to our run game sometimes, other times we couldn't. Comes back to our offensive line, really struggled there, so we couldn't. We just need to build the trenches. It's just
I think the offensive line, to give my answer, it piggybacks on something that you said at the end. I think the number one reason that they struggled this season is the offensive line. The run game absolutely disappeared and vanished in the second half of the season, with 2 games being the lone exception. You can't pass deep because you can't protect for your team. Can't protect your quarterback. Obviously, your quarterback is a little fragile. I know Doug Lee is not Doug Lee, but TD is celebrating my statements on Tua being fragile. It's just the reality of where you are.
Quarterback, man.
If you cannot protect the quarterback and you cannot open up the running lanes, that's why your offense last year, they were able to effectively, they were second or first best rushing. And I say second or first best because they were number 1 in yards per attempt and number 2 in yards gained. And that opened up the big play because teams didn't want to get gashed on the run. So when you take that away from the offense, and now it becomes we're throwing screen plays to facilitate the run, because we can't run. I'm at the point where I think that was the number one problem. And then we get to the loss of Tua. Then we get to the caliber of the backup quarterbacks. But, you could slice this thing however you want. Let's move on to our second question, which is, when Steve Ross gloriously announced that he was going to run it back hours after the defeat to the Jets, what was your reaction, Brittany?
my immediate reaction was he's probably had this letter planned out far longer than when it was announced to us. It's disappointing. It's the definition of insanity. You just are doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. I didn't want McDaniel to leave. I wanted to give him another chance. Greer, though.
Let me ask you a question about that. Okay. And I understand your sentiments because I feel the same way. Greer has been here long enough. We have a history of failed drafts. He actually did pretty well in free agency this year. If we're going to be honest about it, he had more hits than misses. Clearly Jordan Poyer was a miss, but he had more hits than misses. But remember the last time he fired a GM and was going to replace the GM, and 3 other people turned him down on that job because he wouldn't allow them to fire their head coach.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we see this happen all the time where GMs don't want to take the job unless they're going to be able to select the head coach. And then if you do forced to inherit the head coach, just like Rand Carthon with Mike Grable in Tennessee, he gets 1 year and then he gets whacked no matter what he does. Like, is that a healthy situation? Did we want to put McDaniel and the new GM in an unhealthy situation? I think Steve Ross said, let me run the course one more time. Let me run it back one more time.
How many more years?
And then I can do a scorched earth cleanse if it doesn't work. You agree with that or disagree with that, Dudley?
I agree with what you're saying. I don't agree with doing it. But I agree. I when I sat back because my initial response was, I don't know if you saw the video. I was not, I cursed a lot and I tend to not curse on my channel. I was upset because in his statement, he talks about frustration with on the field and the status quo is not good enough, yet we're sticking with the status quo. But I see where you're coming from, Omar, because not only, he doesn't probably want to feel rejected as he has, a few times, but you look at contracts, right? Like Tua's contract, Tyreek Hill contract, Jalen Waddle, not Jalen Waddle, Ramsey's contract.
I give somebody else this mess to fix.
Yeah, exactly.
But then if you make these guys fix it, they're probably going to double down and make it worse.
Well, the way I see it is they all have out after this season. So I feel like he's like, let's see what they can do. And if they can't, then have someone come in and scorch earth, like you said, because you can move on from Tua, you can move on from Tyreek, you can move on, and all of a sudden you got all this cap space. But my thought process was always after the Tennessee loss, I was like, this is it. Like you cannot. So I wanted to fire Greer and bring a GM and have him sit and watch McDaniel for the rest of the season and then have him make the decision. But it's the same situation with when we got the head coach, is you can't cast a wide net for these candidates because, like you said, you're pigeonholing them. With Mike McDaniel, it was you have to work with Boyer and you have to work with Tua. Your net for head coaching is real small. Now with the GM, if he has to work with McDaniel, no one's gonna unless you say to that GM, listen, I need you to work with him for 2025. If he doesn't do well, you can get rid of him and then do what you need to do. But it's like, why do that to yourself? Just clean house like you did with Flores. You should have got rid of Greer, and now we're in another situation. And I've had fans say to me, give him one more year, he'll learn from his mistake. That's 6 years of him not learning from his mistake. It's like being in an abusive relationship and saying he's not going to throw me down the stairs for the 7th time. It's gonna happen.
But you Dolphins fans are in an abusive relationship.
Oh, we're in a very abusive relationship.
You will acknowledge that you are in an abusive relationship.
The Dolphins are going to come in the offseason
I like
with those roses, whether it's Max Crosby or something. I love you. And we're going to say, oh, I know.
Yeah,
and then
George Kittle, Max Crosby, they're going to sell you the big whale and trade their assets for him and then patch the roster with 30-year-old injury guys and tell you it's going to be okay. Here's the thing, but don't you like the fact that they're going to find something to sell you hope, TD?
Yeah, this year I am so excited they're going to sell us hope. Listen, I can't wait for them to use our next 2-year draft picks to bring in talent now. I can't wait for them to spend every penny and lock up the cap for the next 3 years. I can't wait because guess what? We're going to get in the first round playoffs because we're going to be so talented. And the same thing gonna happen, and they finally gonna be gone. Chris Greer is finally gonna be gone. So, ladies and gentlemen, put your seatbelt on and enjoy this ride, okay? Enjoy it. You can even be optimistic. You can hope we can win a Super Bowl. But the reason, let me say this to what y'all are saying, though, Omar. All of y'all are correct, though. And I gotta agree with Doug. And Omar, you said something that I never thought about, which I don't want to give you credit for, but I have to. Doug is right when he says, get rid of it all. But I understand why Ross did what he did. You either get rid of it all or you keep it all. Because, and I'm going to be honest, I don't want to sit here and seem like I'm defending anybody, but it ain't right to fire McDaniel right now. It's
why
not.
You say that? Why you say that?
You brought him in to help with Tua, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah,
I think he did his job.
Yes.
This year, now it was about, now we need to formulate this to win. They rehabbed Tua, right? Now we need to formulate this to win. We didn't figure it out, but we're going to fire him after 1 year of failure. And another thing, here's the tough part about it. We're going to get mad at a guy and say he needs to be gone. And McDaniel, that is, that he created a system that allows Tua to thrive, but don't think I think it's such an insult to Mike McDaniel when people limit his coaching ability to the system we're running now. Who knows? He might be able to create so much more, but he's operating outside of what he has in his hands. Now, last thing I'll say, Ross had to run it back for that reason, but let me tell you one thing that I commend about Chris Greer. His ability to survive is impeccable. I've been saying this for years and nobody want to listen. His ability, because guess what? You can ignore this all you want. People are going to get mad when I say this, but Greer got a few excuses under his belt.
What excuses does he have?
Listen, I wanted to go fix the O-line, but my head coach brought everybody in the room and all we make decisions in this organization as a collaborative.
Yeah,
so when the head coach sat everybody down and said, trust me, we all shook our head yes. And this is why Stephen Ross can't do anything, because every decision that Chris Greer makes, all of them shake their head yes. So with that being said, there is no accountability in the structure when you have.
I'm sorry. I'm not buying that. I'm not accepting that on two fronts. We knew as a fan base, both trenches were trash before the season began. I literally had to beg this organization to sign Calais Campbell.
This is true.
Beg them for months because I knew he was the only thing that was going to make the season salvageable.
Then you're the problem, Omar. You didn't. All you begged was for Calais. Where's the other begging?
I said I begged for Derrick Henry too. Don't act like I didn't beg for Derrick Henry.
That's true. That's very true.
Okay.
Hold on.
But listen, here's the thing: when Jack Driscoll is the only veteran addition you make to that offensive line that just lost
and then
Rob Hunt and lost Con. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. And you replaced the center. Okay, you had to replace the center because we didn't even know that Connor Williams was actually going to play. Then when he played, he retired midway through the season. So, more power to you. You finished the year with the 9th best center in the NFL. Props to you. I'm actually going to give you a gold star for that signing. Okay? And I give you a gold star for Jordan Brooks, and I give you a gold star for Jonnu Smith, and I give you a gold star for Calais Campbell. But we knew the trenches were not good. All of us. Every single fan knew the trenches were not good.
That's unfair. You heard Chris Greer's presser, right? I want you to think about something, though. And trust me, I'm not making excuses for Greer. He got to go. But you got to think about the mentality of how they're thinking about it. If we would have given up on Tua after 2 years, he would have never grown, right? So the way Greer and company is looking at it, I invested capital on some of these guys.
Liam Eichenberg.
I moved up.
You invested 2 draft picks on Liam Eichenberg.
Aren't you
at some point, you got to acknowledge when you're wrong.
But again, he sat the brass in the room and he wanted to upgrade. And what did they all shake their head? McDaniel convinced them. That shows you there was opposition, Omar.
See, I hear what you're saying. But McDaniel can convince me on the quarterback. That's his specialty. Him and Darren Bevel, they all said Skyler's ready. Skyler can do it. Clearly, they were wrong. Okay, so I don't blame Greer for the quarterback, but I'm sorry. You need at least 8, if not 9, legitimate offensive line players because every year I've been here, when the offensive line falls apart, the whole season falls apart. And you went into this year with Jack Driscoll as your only addition, and then a rookie, and then cut him.
Yeah, and for granted both.
Not even. And I actually thought he should have been contending for the starting spot in training camp, but you cut him. Like, what are you thinking?
Wide receiver.
That's what they were thinking. I'm not saying you're wrong. You are 1,000% correct, but that's their thought process. I got to give these guys just as much time as I gave Tua. I have to allow them.
I'm sorry, they're not all first round picks.
And that, you got a point.
I didn't even think Robert Jones played that poorly. Okay, there's clear room for improvement, but I thought he's adequate. I would like him back as a rotational guy. But Liam Eichenberg, and then when Liam Eichenberg started playing with the shoulder injury, it was like, come on, man. It just went from average to mediocre. And then you didn't do anything until eventually inserting Isaiah went in. And then all of a sudden the run game just pops open. And then you continued the rotation. Like, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
Well, let me ask you this question. We go and fix the O-line last year. do we have Jonnu? Do we have Fuller?
Yeah,
Do
they were
we?
cheap.
Yeah, but still, it's all a tug.
They could have found a way. John was making $4 million. They could have found a way. What are you going to say,
When I talked before about not making adjustments, that is like my biggest thing with Mike McDaniel is he watches practice all week and he still makes these decisions. Like with Tyler Huntley against the Tennessee Titans, he was not ready. He did not have the offense down, but yet he watched him all week in practice and said he's going out there instead of, Tim Boyle. You look, like you said,
Boyle was worse.
Liam Eichenberg all season, and then finally when he makes the decision, okay, Wynn's going to go in, he's rotating them. And I did a film breakdown where we saw that big run from Devon Achane that got the touchdown. Wynn blew his guy up. The same exact play, like a few quarters ahead, Eichenberg's getting pushed back 5 yards, and he's constantly falling on the ground. Like, it's just, why aren't you making these adjustments, realizing you're seeing, he's struggling, and he does not like to pull cords on his project. When it's Julian Hill, when it's Skylar Thompson, when it's all these guys, he doesn't realize it's not working.
They pull the cord on Skylar now. They quickly pull it. Not didn't help that he got the broken ribs, but then eventually they switched back up quarterbacks.
Yeah, but he's back. Like, he's back.
Listen,
he's like Chris Greer.
Tua wanted him back.
He just won't go away.
Tua wanted him back.
Right now he's a camp arm, and I like Skylar. I think he wasn't ready for that moment when it was presented to him.
Seattle? No.
Yes.
Yeah, no.
I mean, but also, and this is not an excuse, but he broke his ribs early in that game and played through it. And I admire that, but it was operation. Operation was off, but the operation was always off when Tua's not there. And that's why I also believe that they have to get a specialized quarterback. If you do not operate like Tua, it's just not going to work. And I see the intricacy that Tua operates with. And that's why a lot of people think that, we're going to draft a young quarterback and develop him. Okay, you could draft a young quarterback, but he ain't going to get no development because Tua monopolizes about 90% of the snaps in practice. So you can get the young quarterback. It's just not going to be developed. And then when he has to go in there and play, you're going to take those L's, just like you saw the New Orleans Saints take the L's when they went to Spencer Rattler. It's not a healthy recipe, but it is the recipe that we're cooking from. Let's move on to our next subject, which happens to feature a upset, disgruntled, frustrated Tyreek Hill, who really showed a ton of growth and maturity all year until a final 45 seconds of his last interview where he snaps and the rubber band just goes pop, and he's just like, I can't take this. I can't do this anymore. I need to win. I can't. I don't want to be here. I don't see it working here. I got to go. Dudley, how did you take your star player, your number one asset, your top talent, your number one rated player in the NFL, saying this disappointing season, one where I played through a wrist injury all year, even though I was advised to have corrective surgery? If I can play through a wrist injury, you can't play with a bum hip. You ain't right. How do you take? They let me play through my wrist injury. It was going to threaten my career. He can't play with a bum hip. How do you take Tyreek saying I want out and the organization tap dancing around it?
I think he should have took a minute. I think he should have took a beat before talking to anybody, because obviously it was incredibly frustrating. He looked up, saw that Broncos game, and was like, I'm done. It doesn't help that there's also audio out there of Waller going over him saying, Reek, you done? You done? Like, that's just very bad optics there. He was frustrated. I get you're frustrated. You're also frustrated that your quarterback, Tua, who, when healthy, you had the best season of your career, was the number one player in the NFL, voted by the players. That's also probably where his frustration was coming in, that he, targets went down 119 receptions to 81. Obviously, that has a big portion to do with Tua not being out there. But I think he should have took a beat. I think he should have took a second and maybe talked to Drew Rosenhaus and been like, is there something we could do here? Doing it. But that's Tyreek Hill. If you follow Tyreek Hill on Twitter, He loves messing with the fans. He loved posting the Chargers rumors and posting this and and then after all this happens, he doubled down and put his face on Antonio Brown. It's like that's Tyreek. And obviously, Mike McDaniel, talking about, I'm going to correct the ship and I'm going to be more strict with these guys, but yet he's probably not going to do much about Tyreek Hill because he feels like in all honesty, if I'm the GM, I'm trading Tyreek Hill. Like, look, this isn't working. You don't want to be here. We're not going to force feed you the ball because then our offense becomes predictable. We're just going to trade him. And it's probably not going to happen.
Trade you for what? When? What you getting back? It's
year.
financially prohibitive to trade him because of the contract that you just gave him.
See, and that's where I would.
And if everybody knows he's on the market, he's not going to get fair value for him.
Mm-hmm. I would probably do a Tannehill situation, and I would take less to save cap. So you could probably get a second for him, guaranteed.
You can get the equivalent of the second, yes.
Yeah, but I would
probably not in this draft, maybe in next year's draft.
I would take a third if they took half of his dead cap, which is $28 million. Okay, let us save $14 million in cap space. If you take it, we'll take a third or a fourth. At this point, just to save cap space, to go out, because all of the Miami Dolphins, this is like a different little side subject, all of the Miami Dolphins wide receivers are under 6 foot. Go get yourself a big receiver. Like Tua's out there throwing 50-50 balls, the interception against the Texans to Tyreek Hill, fades in the end zone to Tyreek Hill. Like, it's just not making sense. So, I'd love to keep Tyreek. Tyreek is obviously, a Hall of Fame, future Hall of Famer. But if it's not working and if he doesn't want to be here and if he's going to check out, like you just saw Saquon Barkley could have took off and got a touchdown, but he slid against the Packers, say, oh, do you want to go in and beat the record? Saquon's like, no, let the young guys go in there. But then you have the optics of Tyreek taking himself out in the fourth quarter. It doesn't look good. And the Dolphins are just constantly in that situation where it doesn't look good. So do what you got to do, man.
TD, how do you address the Tyreek saga?
First of all, I don't think the Tyreek situation had much to do with Tua Tagovailoa to begin with. Tyreek hadn't been very productive with or without Tua this year. His numbers had declined regardless of whether he was on the field or not. Maybe even worse when he wasn't, but it's been down mightily, right? I think this is a Tyreek Mike McDaniel issue. And this is me putting things together, so I'm not claiming to be right here, but this is how I see it. I think Tyreek bought in to Mike McDaniel because Mike McDaniel knew something was missing on this offense. We need that third or fourth outlet. That's why they went and got Odell Beckham. They went and got Jonnu because Tyreek Hill could no longer be the first read. Everybody's honing in on that. So what did he sell Tyreek Hill? In my opinion, I think he sold him a bag of goods that said, listen, we need you to be out there being you. But as the defense hone in on you, we want to feed Jonnu all day. We want to feed other guys all day. We want to get everybody else involved, and it'll make life easier holistically for the offense. Yeah. And I think Tyreek bought in for the most part.
He did buy in.
And I think that,
and as long as they were winning, he was fine. And I know this for a fact.
On the head.
We're winning, we're fine. My yards could be down. If we're winning, we're fine. When we're not winning, I mean, there was people don't realize he went back there to handle punts. Why is Tyreek handling punts? He just wants to contribute. He wants to be in the game. He wants to be a factor.
Because he's idle on the field. Let me do something. Let me do as much as I can. And I think that's what it was, because guess what? Judgment Day came. Here we are. I'm going to buy in until there is no more buy-in. Denver won.
I'm done. Done.
This is what my buy-in gets me. This is what not feeding me the rock gets me. My first trip to not make the playoffs.
You were exactly why he blew up.
And people do not understand what he said. And that when you asked him the question, he said, "I'm too good to be out here to just be out here." So therefore, that's what's going on here. This is a Mike McDaniel thing. And guess what Mike McDaniel said to him last offseason? And Tyreek said it on the podcast a year ago. Mike McDaniel, he is a tough coach. He got on me. He like, why are we paying you all this money if you're not going to blah, blah, blah. So this is like a kickback. Hey, man, I bought into your system. I was the role model citizen. I wasn't barking. I may have been behind closed doors saying, give me the ball, but I wasn't. The public didn't know. And here we are today. Your way failed, and I'm too good for this crap. And he blurted out, and in frustration, and that ain't even the best. That ain't even him. That ain't even the rubber band popping. Trust me, when he get traded this year or next year, you're going to see that rubber band pop. You're going to get all the truth behind closed doors of what really went down in Miami.
I don't think so. There are a lot of players that are still protecting Mike McDaniel. And I want to say this. Everybody's associating this, everybody's late to practice on Tyreek. And that's not true. Who
is it?
Even when Tyreek is coming late on the field to practice, he's in the training room. He's getting things addressed. And then a lot of the stuff, especially in training camp, Tyreek showed up late to practice every day in training camp, but that was planned to limit his reps because when he does work, he's going at a ridiculous pace, and they're trying to prevent cramping and trying to prevent injuries and trying to keep down the mileage count on his legs. Did I think that was fair to everybody else? No, but life ain't fair. So, it is what it is.
He brought great routes.
How do you address the Tyreek saga?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
I don't know how we come back from it. I think that the damage has been done
right now that you can come back from it, that it's okay. He was emotional. He was in his feelings.
Okay. And I understand all that. Then if that's the case, then Mike needs to do what Andy Reid did in Kansas City and muzzle him. Like he has to be stopped. Like
he was muzzled all year. Trust me. He was muzzled all year. He was muzzled all year. And before that press conference, he says, I don't want to talk. Y'all don't want me to talk. Like,
and you guys should have
let him go. They brought him back. They brought him back and said, here is Tyreek for you. And I said, all right, we're not gonna pull punches. Like, so you don't think that you could put the toothpaste back in the tube?
I think that just from a locker room standpoint, too, like, we obviously have a culture issue going on. Why do you think that you have a culture issue going on? Tell me, in your mind, from an outsider, explain to me why you think you have a culture issue going on. Because they said after in the end of the year wrap, like players were late, and I think that Mike wants to be their friend more. I think he tries too hard to be their friend instead of being a coach, a head coach.
Okay, that's
fair. And
I
think that when there is issues and we're not winning and it's not fun, it's hard to want to play for him. He loses respect. It's easier for Mike to be their friend and everything when we're winning, we're having fun, and we're having TD celebrations and all of that.
We didn't see no
good
TD
highlights. That's very easy. There's like none. And I think that when adversity hits, the locker room loses Mike.
Hold on. But when adversity hit, they responded from 2-6 to 6-2.
Because our quarterback came back. Because our quarterback came back.
But one of those wins was with Tyler Huntley.
That's when we played an easy step.
Wasn't
I hate this whole
You can hate it all you want. There is a such thing as competition. You play the bad teams. We are a team that can beat all the bad teams. This is why last year when we played Dallas, they were a team that could beat all the bad teams. So when you got two teams that can beat all the bad teams, one of them got to win, and the Dolphins beat Dallas. So we're
look at you discrediting Tua's one proud victory. Look at you. I knew you were gonna take a shot. I knew you were gonna take a shot.
Why am I going to discredit a game that Tua ain't do nothing? We kicked 6 field goals.
How did we get there? How did we get there to kick the field goal?
Ain't running down the field and Tua throwing 1 7-yard
We're going to pull up the stats.
You can pull them up. All I know is 6. And come on, man. Let's be honest. 6 field goals. The Cowboys turned it over 4 times, and we won off of a field goal. Let's just call it what it is. When are we going to stop?
It doesn't matter. Just win the games. That's all that matters. Win the game.
No, win the game against good teams. Let's start winning games. Let's have conversations about winning games against good teams.
That's fair. And a lot the narrative about they can't win games in cold climate areas, and I think that there's some credence to that, but they're also playing better teams that are built differently, physical in the trenches in those cold environments, and they are built like a finesse team. It's just you have to put reinforcements into you have to put resources and effort and into your trench play, and it's just not there. Let's move on to our final question of this Dolphins in-depth roundtable, which I definitely enjoy everybody joining me here. Dudley, let's start with your one way that you would fix the Miami Dolphins moving forward. Just one. How do you address this? I'll give you an example. For me, last year, Derrick Henry fixes a lot of these issues. You're not physical, you're not tough. Okay, how about you go get the toughest, most physical running back? Now he actually said he wanted to be here, so let's just put that to the side. Whether they could have created the money or not, which they could have, that would have addressed one issue. How do you address what the Dolphins' issues are in your mind?
Oh God. There's so many.
There's so many.
What I would have done is I would have fired Chris Greer, but
well, we know that's not going to happen, Doug.
Yeah, no, not this year anyway. Probably, and it's like a roundabout thing is the toughness, like the whole mentality of this team. You have to change that, and I'm giving you a roundabout thing because it's a lot of it is the trenches. So I'm just going to stick with the trenches, because to win in December, to win in the play, you're looking at all these teams right now that are playing, you look at Jalen Hurts. At one point he had like 6 seconds to throw the ball. Like, you need to build the trenches. That's what championship teams win off of, is the trenches. You get after the quarterback and you protect the quarterback. If you're able to build those trenches, you're going to win. And we went into this season with 2 guards that weren't good. We went into this season with 9 defensive tackles. Like, thank God it panned out that Calais Campbell and Sealer went off, but it's not good enough because you also had to limit Calais Campbell. So if you want to win this year, you give me, and I'm not even saying top 10, give me top 15 offense and defensive line. I think they have a good shot of competing for the division, but if they don't, it's going to be another 8 to 7 win season.
Yeah. What about you, Brittany?
I'm going interior offensive line, guards first. If I can only do one thing, that is my one thing.
Are you going free agency, or are you using resources? Because you generally don't draft a guard in the first round, even though sometimes they're Hall of Fame caliber guard.
You can.
And then you got to pay $50 million for a guard. How are you doing this year? Are you drafting one and signing one? What is your approach to rebuild this trenches?
I think it's
Teron Armstead.
Well, we have Patrick Paul. That's the whole reason we drafted Patrick Paul.
So you're ready to change. You're ready to move on.
Well, Teron, I thought we all knew that this was kind of like his last year. I don't know. I think this was a position I wanted to draft a guard last year. Because then we wouldn't. Would you have taken a guard over Chop Robinson? Yeah, I think I wanted Graham Barton, but now hindsight, I'm happy we have Chop.
I mean, that's the ultimate argument, where it's take a premier position, player at a premier position, or take the best available guard. And this organization has preferred to take a player at premier positions and then figure it out elsewhere.
But how's that worked out for us?
Not very well.
Not very well. Maybe we should try something different because it's not working out for us.
Yeah. What about you, TD? What is the one route that you would go to fix these Dolphins moving forward?
Well, sell the team, but that ain't happening. So
he did sell the team. He just sold the team.
Well, you know what I'm saying. Majority. 10%? The majority. All right.
Hey, man, he got his initial investment back.
Well, you're right about kudos to him.
That's hustle, baby. Listen.
But the real way to fix this thing, everybody just be patient. Just let status quo happen. 1 year. We just got to watch this for 1 year. And I promise you.
But how do you know they can't turn it around in 1 year?
You know what? Doug tweeted this mess yesterday, and he right. Doug tweeted this mess yesterday, and he right. It is so Dolphin for Chris Greer to sell the ship We gonna get the best thing, everything we can. We make the playoffs, beat another bad team that just slipped in, get our first playoff win in forever, get bounced in the next round, and we all see it as progress.
No, but that would be progress. A playoff win for the first time in 25 years would be progress. If you win your first round of the playoffs, the playoffs is a different animal. If you don't notice how physical those games are, something's wrong with you because you don't know what football supposed to look like.
Listen, I understand. I agree with you, Omar. All I'm saying is don't be fooled. Right now, we're at a dire point with all of these contracts coming to an end after next year, or situations cap-wise with older players, a lot of them getting older too, where you need to do something serious next year. Like, this isn't no win your first playoff game. I mean, Tyreek ain't going to be here for no $70-something million cap hit after this year. I mean, whatever it is. And Armstead is probably done this year, but if he play it again, he done. And then you talk about Jalen Ramsey. Hey, things might start to crack. And it just goes down the whole roster if you really look at it. So you actually have to be do something serious. You need to make an AFC championship game this year in 2025.
No,
yeah, that's the
we're not going to. We're just not going to.
You're raising the bar. That's not fair. That's not fair.
That's the problem. Am I raising the bar based off of the timeline they set a few years, 5 years ago? Am I raising the bar? Now
we didn't do enough, and then look at what else we have.
But
we're going against
your resources
the Buffalo
behind
Bills.
This build right here.
I mean, even if you restart it, okay, let's say they restart it. Let's say this year they do something bold and sacrifice themselves and restart it. It's still going to take about a 3-year build to get to where you want to go. Now, if they had lightning in a bottle and somehow find a killer defensive tackle and somehow find the next Fred Warner and somehow find another Robert Hunt and somehow, come on, and then hit on 70% of your free agents, maybe. But I don't like the fact that fans, is this team far away from Buffalo? Yes, they are. Are they far away from Baltimore? Yes, they are. Are they far away from Kansas City? Yes, they are. But I think that one injury to any of those teams can change the dynamic of what the season looks like.
The quarterback, that's it.
Probably, but I did say one injury.
I mean, look at the Chiefs.
I think it's important
Chiefs.
to be very descriptive on that one.
The Chiefs won a Super Bowl last year with Mahomes throwing the ball to MVS, and
because he's a quarterback that can put his team on.
Listen, they have Patrick Mahomes, and they have
Josh Allen's got Mac Hollins.
He's a quarterback
offensive line. So we don't need to keep investing we don't need to keep having all these players paid top dollar at each position. Really need to change shit around, invest in the trenches, invest in a quarter.
Actually be good at talent evaluation, which I 100% agree with you. Unfortunately, we know we're not there.
We're
not going to be there anytime soon. We're just not.
And there's your problem. So here's my biggest issue with the Miami Dolphins. If Omar, and I actually agree with you, we're a few years away, to be quite honest with you. So when we arrive, are any of those guys going to be on this roster?
Nope.
So why are we stretching it? Just start now, and you actually can make that destination shorter. Start now. But we won't.
Here's why I think you're here. Other than the fact that Steve Ross is terrified to hire, it's traumatizing for him. And I wrote a column chronicling his whole hiring history. It's always been traumatic. And I think Dolphin fans, they're so removed from the situation, they don't realize how traumatic every single one of Steve Ross's hires have been. But remember that Baltimore game that lead into probably what was the biggest NFL game of the year last year, where it was a New Year's Eve game, and winner was going to be the AFC number one seed and the MVP of the league. Now, obviously, the Dolphins got face planted, just sumoplex.
So bad. So bad.
Yeah. I mean, That didn't help, but it doesn't help when you lose Xavier Howard on the second play of the game, and then you lose Cameron Good, and special teams leaked, and and everything went left in that game.
Lost Bradley Chubb this whole season.
They were not prepared for that moment, and it cost them. Okay, but remember, you got there. Now the question is, can you get there again? And when you do get there, can you rise to the occasion? I don't have a doubt that they can get there again. My doubt is, can they rise to the occasion, because they continuously fall short when the occasion arrives.
Have they ever rose to the occasion?
Dallas, which you discredit.
Well, I'll let the audience decide
I'll
on
say
that.
the Rams game this year.
Oh, the Rams game this year, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, their first game back, Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp.
Listen, and it was also wasn't
don't
it
even TV.
It was the first second game back. It was on the road. Don't discredit it. They're in the playoffs. Yeah.
And getting bounced tonight, but here,
I think they're going to win. I think the Rams are a lot better than a lot of people think.
I'll be tweeting you tonight, but
and I'll call for the police.
But anyway, listen. But here's my whole point, and Brittany's right on. The problem is we keep paying these high paid contracts, right? And I feel like
stars.
I feel like every
stars?
high.
Don't you need somebody to sell hope?
That's the problem. Every high paid contract I feel like we could have 3, 6, or 7 level players, and then if somebody goes out hurt, then we're still okay. Like a lot of these teams.
Yep.
But the big issue here is, you see how you're saying, Omar, we're a few years away, 2-3 years. It's kind of like we'll be figuring it out and then we'll compete again. It's going to get worse before it gets better, in my opinion. Number one.
Okay.
Number two, I don't know if we're 3 years away. If Chris Greer he's about to start his process of saving his job, making the future worse and worse. This was a critical moment for Stephen Ross. Critical. And if he isn't going to be willing to move on next year with a clear expectation of you got to do this or else.
He has to. He said it.
But what? No.
What
is the expectation? What is the expectation? A
playoff
win?
game where you're fired.
See, I just feel like that's muddy too, because
you're not Dudley. You're not okay with win a playoff game or you're fired.
No, that's 100%. That's what it should have been this year.
But you lost your quarterback for 6 games, Dudley.
And whose fault is that for not being able to still win games, losing your quarterback? There's plenty of other NFL teams that are still winning games with a backup quarterback. There's no reason we couldn't. None.
You did win games. You won Cleveland. You won 2.
That's right.
Here's what I will say about
second time he was out.
And the defense cost you Indianapolis.
Which is true.
Most are cost us in Indianapolis. I'll say that.
I will say this about backup quarterbacks that I think our fan base is unfair. How many games do you expect a backup quarterback to win out of every 3?
I think your backup quarterback's got to keep you fit 500, get you to 500.
That's why I said out of every 3, though. How many do you expect? Because if they're winning 2 out of 3, they're a starting quarterback.
But it's also depending who are you playing.
You also don't expect your guy to be missing 6 games.
Yeah, 100%.
You expect your backup to hopefully relieve you for 3 games, and you're okay with a 1 and 2 you can recover from. That's my opinion on it. But if you're asking,
Matt Moore can win you 2 of 3.
Yeah, he can, but you're asking for a lot of a backup, and you gotta get the guy at backup.
Yeah, I don't even know who that is, to be honest. It ain't Andy Dalton. I don't know why people think that it is Andy Dalton.
No,
and he's under contract. Not that he wouldn't be easy to get, but
I just fear that we're going to end up like Houston. But I also am excited if we do end up like Houston.
What's wrong with Houston?
You forget whenever their general manager and their head coach was on the hot seat. They gave up the farm and everything and traded for Laramie Tunsil. And I think Chris Greer is about to be drastic, right? And do the same thing, try to do all he can to win. And it failed over there.
If Max Crosby's out there, you're not going to go get him?
No, but here's
Max Crosby.
Brittany, are you going to go get him?
No.
You're
why.
not going to go get him.
I can't, and here's why. Look at how much we've invested in the position. You want to keep throwing money at the same position?
But are we?
This is bad. Omar,
Does anybody know
bad
what
practice? But yeah, we gonna go get him. But you know this is bad practice.
It is. It is. It's bad. But you know you're a team that loves stars. You're obsessed with it because this market loves stars. You don't care about anybody else. You just want stars.
Yeah.
You're sitting up here talking about go get 3 mid-tier players instead of that one star. I'm sorry. We don't care about mid-tier players. Most people didn't even realize Jordan Brooks had the best year since Zach Thomas at linebacker. They didn't care because he's not a star.
And that's
I tweeted about him all the time. I loved him.
Okay.
They gotta bring Dotson back.
We are a star
like
bleeping city. And they are I don't know who the star is. It could be George Kittle. It could be Max Crosby. You know what they're going to do. You know what they're going to do.
That's bad.
That's why they needed to fire him.
That's bad.
I'd rather have a star safety, to be honest.
I mean,
I think that's a position we've lacked.
Yeah, well, you know, somebody's going to pay Javon Holland like he's a star, and we're just going to wave goodbye. And it'll be interesting.
To be honest, like I love Javon Holland, but I'm okay having another team pay him what he wants to be paid.
I think everybody's in agreement there.
Let me ask you a question, Omar.
What's that?
Since we paid Tua, if Greer would have paid him a year earlier,
paid Tua a year earlier,
because you know how that eases the contract situation. Because Tua got
I don't worry about Tua's contract situation, and here's why: because Tua's going to restructure his contract. He's going to take $20 million. Ross is going to write him a big fat $20-30 million check, and it's going to lower the cap. But
it's going to keep the dead cap on the back end, though.
But that doesn't address our quarterback issue.
I'm not talking about the quarterback. I'm not talking about Tua. I'm making a different point.
I don't think there is a quarterback issue. I think there's a keep the quarterback healthy issue. And maybe if you start putting together a piss poor line, you might be able to you might be able to keep the quarterback healthy.
I think that we need to have a hard talk about how do you keep Tua healthy.
Good question.
Clearly, you need to add to your resources and build a brick wall in front of him.
Oh, the brick wall is.
We have to be able to have a quarterback who can escape the pocket and take a hit. Like you
don't need that quarterback. Was Tom Brady that quarterback? Was Eli Manning that quarterback?
They were more durable. They were more durable, Omar.
He could take a hit. He can't take a beating. He can take a hit.
He got a hit, and then the medical staff's going to bench him.
Omar, do you know that Tua literally on a rate, not how many, but at rate, runs one? It has to escape the pocket one of the least in the NFL. Now I know because we get the ball out fast, right? But that small sample size, he keeps getting hurt. We already minimized how much he leaves the pocket.
Is he durable? No. Is he fragile? Yes.
How do you fix it?
You make sure you got a good, competent backup, a Jimmy G type, and you get him a good running game, and you improve the offensive line to the point where he feels protected.
So
go ahead.
What I'm hearing is we need to treat Tua like Teron Armstead. Only expect a certain amount of games a year. You should only expect 13 games from Tua a year. You should only expect 12 or 13 from Armstead a year. That's about right. That's what the numbers say.
You might get lucky. You might get a 17.
Yeah, and then you might get a 10 or 11. So it all evens out. You only need to expect him for 13 games.
I don't want to put the fragility of Tua. He played this year, no other concussions. He got rocked plenty, had other hits. So I'm not one of those people who believes that every time he's going to get hit, his egg's going to get scrambled. Now, the hip, does that worry me? It absolutely does, because there are people that I know in the league. There are 6 teams that I know that personally had him off their board because they didn't feel like he would have a long NFL career because of that hip. So now that we've got another issue in another area of the hip, that's not good. They're all connected, no matter what you tell me. But I believe that he has, on the baseline, he is Matt Ryan. On the top shelf, he is Drew Brees. Was Drew Brees all the time taking his team to the Super Bowl? He was not. but Tua is winning at that level, and it's hard to find winning quarterbacks. So I think we have to continue to invest in him and build a better team around him. And then if he can't stay healthy, we can move on. But on that note, we have been nearly an hour on this Dolphins in Depth. I want to thank my panelists, Dudley Durong, Brittany from Sideline T, and then the man that the police are after, TD Finstock. I'm going to see you on these internet streets, sir. But yes, tonight I am picking the Rams. Everybody's going with what? With who tonight? Minnesota or
Minnesota.
Vikings. See, I'm telling you, don't sleep on these Rams.
A real franchise quarterback.
All right.
Sam
All right,
Darnold,
folks. Appreciate your time, and we will see you later this week on Dolphins in Depth.
Tour time, baby. Let's go.